So Rocky came up to me Thursday, and he did it again here earlier. So Thursday was, are you going to be still speaking on Sunday? I said, yes. He said, you have to have a joke. Did the same thing this morning. And then he walked off. So I didn't want to disappoint you, Rocky. So I actually got my phone out, got my to-do list out, and put in there, sermon, bad jokes. I managed to find one for you, Rocky. Even better, it's a bad pastor joke. So, a preacher was completing a temperance sermon. And with great expression he said, if I had all the beer in the world, I would throw it in the river. With even greater emphasis he said, if I had all the wine in the world, I would throw it in the river. And he concluded by saying, if I had all the whiskey in the world, I would throw it in the river. Then he sat down. The song leader stood very, very cautiously and announced with a smile, for our closing song, let us sing hymn number 365. Shall we gather at the river? I love that one. That was great. It's like, bingo. Before I start my message, I want to do something a little offbeat. We never thank the people who help out during service. I want to, if we could give a round of applause for our worship team, please. And back in back, please give Chris a big round of applause. So, 1 Corinthians. Several years after Paul started his ministry, he's traveled all over the edge of the Mediterranean. He's planted a church at a city called Corinth, which is down towards the southern part of the mainland of Greece. In the meantime, he's traveled over to Turkey across the Aegean when he starts getting reports from back in Corinth, and he receives a letter of concerns. And he looks these over, and he writes back to deal with these specific problems because he realizes that what's happening is starting to endanger the life of this church and their witness to the people around them. In the passage at hand, he's dealing with the question of eating food that's been sacrificed to an idol. So they would sacrifice this and then share it with people in the room, sell it at the market, and so on and so forth. It's all around them. And this is apparently causing problems. When Paul talks about this being a problem in the passage, the original Greek actually uses a term more like stumbling block. Something you trip over. He's actually remembering back to when the people of Israel were about to reach the promised land. At this point, going back to Abraham, Yahweh had repeatedly promised that they would make them into a great people and give that people its own land. He made those promises because he had a plan to turn the rest of humanity away from these imaginary gods to him. And Israel was critical to this. Israel was going to be what he used to draw them. If they worshipped other gods, it wouldn't work, not least because it would muddy the message. They had to worship Yahweh first and Yahweh only. As they approach Canaan, and they're about to fulfill the other part of this promise and the covenant with God, a series of kings start attacking them because they fear the Israelites are going to take their land. King after king is defeated. So one king tries something different, a little more subtle. He put, as Revelation says, a stumbling block before the people of Israel. In Numbers 25, it goes into detail about this. The king in question convinces the women of his country to seduce the men of Israel into having sexual relations with them. I won't do a Bill Clinton joke. Sorry, I didn't even think about that till just now when I'm staring at this. So they do this, and then they go on to invite the people to the sacrifices of their gods. And the Israelite men not only go to these sacrifices, but actually bow down and worship the gods and eat the meat. In those three simple steps, the king had turned the people of Israel away from God and removed the threat to him, but they were derailing the plan God had to reach all of humanity. So the problem wasn't in the specific things, sexual relations and the eating the meat. It's what it did to God's plan. That it created this stumbling block that tempted people away from God and turned them on a path that meant other people were never going to be saved. Stumbling blocks can take many forms. Ingrid is my second wife. My first wife, I met and married not too long after I became a Christian. She knows this story, fortunately. But shortly after we got married, we joined a church, a large mega church, and we joined the Sunday school. And our specific one was a young married group. There were about 20 people in there, so everybody got to know each other very, very quickly. Unfortunately, the marriage blew up about 14 months later, and I kept going. My wife was not going. And week after week, I would show up, and no one noticed my wife was missing. No one asked how she was doing. It didn't seem to click, or they didn't seem to care. And as I looked at this, I listened to them talk, I realized that for most of these people, this wasn't about God. They were here as essentially a networking opportunity. This is the way you connected in this city. Like a lot of cities in the South, you had to be a member of the Baptist church or the Methodist church, or you did do business in town. And that's what these people were there for. And I looked at it, and I ran away from that church for a long, long time. God worked very hard to bring me back. But the attitude they had about what they were doing was a stumbling block for me. Another event that Paul would have thought about is recounted over in Acts 15. It's a council that was assembled at Jerusalem. And it's, I have in my notes, it was assembled maybe about a year after he started his ministry. What they were debating was how many of the laws of Moses the new Christians, the Gentile Christians, had to follow. So they go back and forth, and they go back and forth, and finally Peter asked a very simple question. Why are you asking them to do something that we haven't been able to do, and that our ancestors haven't been able to do? Essentially, you can think of that as the whole reason Jesus came. The rules weren't working, and they were asking new Christians to take on the rules that hadn't worked for anybody else. Fortunately, in the end, they took his advice. They did ask people to abstain from the meat sacrifice of the idols and fornication again. They didn't forbid it, but this group realized that could get in the way of people being reached by God. So they asked Christians to abstain from this. In the same vein, in our message, or in our passage, Paul says, we are no worse off if we do not eat, and no better off if we do. But take care that this liberty of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. It's not the actions themselves, but that it can tempt other people and turn them away from God. When what I do tempts myself or someone else, I shouldn't do it. So the title of my message, My Sister's Shoes. This, in some senses, this is a variation of walk in my shoes. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. But it's got a little bit of a different spin. These are new Christians. It's not somebody on the same level with me. It's somebody who's very new, like a child, is the way Jesus described it. I thought, I want to bring that home. It's my sister's shoes. It's my little sister's shoes. Do I want my little sister to see this? What is my conclusion my little sister is going to draw if she sees me doing these things? If it's going to get between her and God, when she sees it, I should not be doing it. So I keep saying that it's not the actions themselves that are the fundamental problem. So let's take a step back and look at how this relates to the idea of sin. A lot of times when we look at the way the Bible talks about sin, we often imagine something that puts a barrier between us and God. I did something wrong, so I need to ask God to forgive me. It seems simple enough, but often there's someone else involved. It's a real simple example. Say I break my snow shovel. I've got great neighbors. They let me borrow anything. My neighbor told me where his key is to his garage, so I can walk over there anytime and borrow a snow shovel. So I go over there, I borrow the snow shovel. Wonderful, except I forget to take it back for a few days. In the meantime, his wife's trying to shovel. She goes to look for the snow shovel, and it's not there anymore. So, if you've ever had your house broken into, maybe you feel violated at this point. If you've had a really bad day at work, maybe you think God's got it in for you. Why did God do this to me? You pull it, Joe. It must be God's mad at me. What did I do? Or maybe you've got some high school kids down the block and they cracked you and they pulled something out of your garage, so you blame them. And you get into them and it escalates. The problem isn't what I just did. In fact, I borrowed that snow shovel. It's what it creates in her head and where that goes. Because I didn't think of my neighbors when I borrowed that snow shovel, and I didn't think of returning it. Paul might say people put our actions between themselves and others, and more importantly, from the perspective of our passage, between other people and God. God, why did you let them do this? God, why did you take my stuff? We can make judgments about God and what's God's up to by the fact a snow shovel disappeared. When I basically stole that snow shovel, when someone eats that meat that's been sacrificed to an idol, they are saved by grace. Those sins are covered because Christ's blood covers all sins, but that doesn't give us license to do anything we want. When our actions get between others and God, we might be tempted to say, but that's not my problem. She needs to get over that. I have a right to eat whatever I want. It's just a snow shovel. Even if someone does need to get over that, needs to grow out of their weak conscience, that's not our job to force them to do that. God will bring them forward in His time. He knows our weaknesses. He knows when we're ready to grow. And He'll make it happen when time comes. We don't get to force that issue. As Paul points out, when people go over a line, so he's talking about, in a specific example he gives, is they see this eating of the meat in the temple, and they emulate it, they follow that. When you cross that line, whatever that line is in the specific case, by your knowledge, those weak believers for whom Christ died are destroyed. And as Christians, we look at that word destroyed, and we think spiritual death. It's interesting, it's actually the Greek word behind there actually primarily means physical death. Paul he's certainly concerned with that. In some ways, he's more concerned about what we do as humans when we're guilty. So, look at teenagers when they get turned. When they get guilty, some will turn to drugs. In extreme cases, they'll actually commit suicide. Drugs are, if you don't get off them, they're a slow form of death. People's guilt can destroy them, one way or the other. Our actions give people permission to act. And for certain actions, the guilt they suffer can destroy them. When an action can tempt somebody, choose something else. So, he puts a more subtle obligation on all of us in here. He talks about it over in Romans 14:13, a little more clearly. Let us therefore no longer pass judgment on one another, but resolve instead to never put a stumbling block or a hindrance in the way of each other. When he says no longer pass judgment, he's talking to all of us, the new Christians and the mature Christians. To those, the new Christians, those with a weak conscience, he's saying, don't let your conscience be a judge of another's liberty. Somebody's a new Christian, or my little sister. One lesson that they need to learn early, and it's their God will get them there, is to look at the rest of us and not judge God by our failings, because we all do it every day. And as long as we're doing this until my sister gets that message, that can get in the way of that. So part of the growth process for new churches, Christians, to learn not to judge the rest of us when we fail in front of them. On the other end, those who've been studying for years and years and years and years, you're at church every Sunday, you read the Bible back and forth and back and forth. Do not let that liberty of yours, the fact that everything is covered, all your sins are covered, do not let that get in the way of your little sister, of these new Christians, of your neighbor. And don't judge them by where they are. Again, God will get in there. Let God take his time. Don't get impatient with them. It'll come. Every time we judge each other, we do something fundamentally, we're a danger to our group here. This is part of the message of Corinthians. When we judge each other, we divide the church. Not only do we threaten to drive people away from Christ, we tear down the whole group. Paul calls us to stop, no longer pass judgment on each other. I wasn't here in town during the last presidential election, but I know the church I went to in Colorado Springs, people had to stop talking about politics because it was dividing the church down the middle. Because people were mixing up their politics and their religion. But whatever it is, anytime we pass judgment on one another, it divides the church. We tear it down. We don't build it up. Paul calls us to stop that. But what do we choose instead? If we're not supposed to tempt each other, and we're not supposed to judge each other, what do we do instead? When an action can tempt somebody, I said choose something else. What do we choose instead? Paul gives us the answer right up front. Knowledge puffs up. Fills you with hot air. Kind of float up off the ground. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. We aren't to divide the church with judgment, but build it up in love. We're to live out love. It's that simple. A couple months ago, the communion we have on Thursdays, we've got this jar out there that we put tips in. And this one Thursday, two guys were leaving, and one of them reaches in and takes a bunch of money and leaves. A couple of people working spotted it doing this. You know, I'm glad they didn't go chase him down, but we had a discussion afterwards. What do we do about this? And we talked about this, and I remembered something I taught my daughter. When she was young, she trusted her friends, and she trusted her stepsisters, and she trusted the neighbor boy, and she would just leave her money lying around everywhere. And I don't know how many times she came in, Dad, my money's gone again. Okay, honey, you need to stop leaving it lying around. And then it would repeat, and it would repeat, and it's like she didn't want to believe her friends were capable of this. And I finally found something that worked. I said, honey, when you leave that money lying around, it's just right there. Your friends can just grab it. You're tempting them. Don't do that to them. It's so easy for them to take that when you did. Don't put them in that position. She finally got it. She finally stopped leaving her money lying around and stopped walking off. So with what we ended up doing, I think it was Melanie did this, just put a lid on there. You know, it wasn't right there where grabbing it anymore. Stop tempting people. That part of the problem went away. And then it came up, well, what if they come back next week or the week after, the week after, or the week after? What are we going to do? I said, just point them out to me. I'll go talk to them. And so I'm sure everybody's got this picture in their heads that I'm going to go over there and go, me guy, you stole money. Give me back our money. God money. That would have been fun. That would have been a lot of fun, but it wouldn't work. What I would have done if they'd come back is I would have sat down and introduced myself. Say, I'm Tim. You're and how's it going? And I would have talked with them. Because whatever reason they stole that money, love has an answer. They needed food. Go right down here. You go here, right down the road here, every week, pick up food. They need money for this, money for that, whatever. There's an answer. Love's got an answer. And it's a matter of sitting down and listening to people and finding out what the answer is. In another mention of God in here is anyone who loves God is known by Him. In fact, it's almost at the very beginning. And I'm glad it's there because what I'm suggesting here is, of course, that's hard. In ourselves, that's really hard. Somebody stole my money and I'm going to go love on them? Are you serious? But anyone who loves God is known by Him. I started looking at that, and I look at where the love comes up in other parts of the passage, and I got reminded of 1 John 4, way down at the end. We love because He first loved us. I'm going to go love them because His Son died on the cross. That's a whole lot more painful than 20 or 40 bucks or whatever we had stolen. And then you get to the very end of 1 John 4. Those who love God must love their brothers and sisters also. My sister, even if my sister is two guys that are stealing money out of a jar, we have to love them. That's the only way God's going to reach them. So, we don't invent this love. That's why it gets easy for us. It comes from God first. I'd like to talk about we're a conduit. It flows through us to them. We don't have to really do anything. We just have to let God work. I just have to sit down with somebody and have a conversation. I've had a million of those at this point. It's very easy to do. And listen. And let God tell me what to do. It's not about driving people away from God. It's about pulling people to God. It's not about tearing down and judging each other, tearing down the church. It's about building each other up and building the church up. It's about love.